Hey, boys and girls, and all you technical kind of people as well. I'm here again with Mr. Musk and Elon. Thanks so much.
Good to see you, Sandy.
It's very good to see you. And by the way, I got to tell you, last time I was here, it was dirt floors and tents. You've got, this building is absolutely amazing.
Isn't it beautiful?
6 months?
I mean, you should like look at I mean, there's like some really nice touches, like having that mezzanine level there.
That's absolutely amazing.
And then you can just, the team can work in the office here. One of the things I like is just make sure that engineering and production are closely connected, so that engineering's not like off in some ivory tower and can't see the problems on the production floor. So when engineering is like right here, and you walk out and you see the production floor, you can actually see where you've designed something that is very difficult to manufacture. Like you can see the pain in the factory where like things aren't getting made. So where's what's choking the production line type of thing. Have the same thing in Hawthorne for Falcon 9 and Dragon. Yeah.
Well, in here I was looking around, and I haven't seen much going on, but I'm assuming that a lot of that has to do with everything else that's going on. I mean, you've got interviews every 10 minutes. That's an amazing feat all by itself.
Actually, only I think four interviews that I'm doing, and you're one of them.
Yeah, well, and you know what? I'm very grateful. I really am. But I would like to get into some of the other technical stuff.
Sure.
I noticed your build areas or whatnot are brilliant. I was asked to make comments, somebody else that's making rocket ships, and I said, you're doing them sideways. Why? Why aren't you doing them vertically? You'll never get them around. And yet everything here is so perfect. I mean, certainly you didn't get this idea from Boeing, because they make them horizontally as well. So
yeah, we make Falcon 9 horizontally as well. So, I mean, I guess you can do it either way, horizontal or vertical. If it's horizontal, you got to have things to keep the barrel sections round.
Right.
Otherwise, they just flatten out on you. And if you're going to do sections vertically, you need a lot of roof height. So you can see kind of like how the factory progresses from a lower roof height to a medium roof height to a high roof height. So but you can really do it either way.
Well,
it's basically you just need 9-meter rounding rings, which are kind of unwieldy. And we're trying to design this for what by rocket standards is a high production rate. So
that's my next question actually. What are you looking at? What is your production rate per year?
We're aiming for 1,000 ships a year.
1,000 ships a year.
Yeah, long term.
1,000 ships.
1,000 ships a year, and each one of those ships is the largest flying object ever made.
And that's pretty impressive. So let's skip ahead a little bit, because I only got a few minutes. Mars is Occupy Mars. You got it on your shirt.
Yes.
So got to be okay. So I can see how you can launch, and I can see how you can maybe get there in a hurry. So the two questions I've got, one is propulsion. Are you going to be using ionic propulsion for the craft that's actually going to head for Mars, or are you
not currently? No.
What? Not currently.
No. The amount that we could speed up the journey with ion propulsion is very low. So ion thrusters they just have such low thrust, and in order to get that high specific impulse, you need a lot of energy. So you'd have to unfurl massive solar panels and then stow them for entry. So we don't currently plan to use ion thrusters, but that could be a future optimization maybe. The current way, like the way I'd say, if you want to get there faster, you'd want to just have your transfer velocity be higher from Earth. But then you're going to need to use a lot more atmospheric braking or some amount of propulsive braking when you get to Mars. So your payload drops dramatically from, like, if you go unless you coast all the way there, your payload drops quite a bit.
Yeah.
So now, but ultimately, I mean, you can see a path to say, okay, we could just turn a 6-month journey into a 3-month journey, but you'd probably cut your payload by 4. You know.
So yeah. So the other thing is, okay, let's say you get there, re-entry or entry into the Martian, lack of atmosphere and whatnot. So what do you?
It's got an atmosphere. It's similar to Earth at 100,000 feet, and most of the slowing down occurs at even for Earth atmospheric re-entry, most of the slowing down occurs at 100,000 feet atmospheric density or above. So Mars' atmospheric density is about 1% that of Earth. But that's actually plenty for getting to, close to sonic velocity, maybe a little below subsonic.
So, okay, touchdown. Are you going to have thrusters then to slow the craft?
Oh yeah, for land on Mars?
Yeah, on Mars.
Yeah, no, literally just Starship would land on thrusters on the Raptor, using the Raptor engines.
Yeah.
And it would land with a lot of payload. So it's different from Earth, where it's coming back, if it's delivering satellites to orbit, it's coming back with much lighter.
Yeah.
But if it's going to Mars, it's landing with max payload.
And that's where I'm kind of, are you going to have anything else to slow it down?
Well, it's just heat shield and thrusters.
Yeah.
You do need quite a bit of propulsive. You need quite a lot of propellant to slow it down because it's coming in heavy with max payload.
Yeah.
And to your point earlier, the atmospheric density is only 1% that of Earth. So you're lucky if you can get subsonic on Mars, but you can certainly get the vast majority of the kinetic energy can be taken out with the atmosphere.
With what atmosphere it has.
Yeah, the vast majority of it. And so, but then you're going to need a lot more propellant than we need on Earth because your terminal velocity is still going to be, Mach 1-ish. And you're heavy, so you're going to need a lot more propellant to land.
So how many? I'm assuming that the first shot to Mars is not going to have people on it. You're going to have to drop stuff for them and whatnot. I would.
I mean, the first missions to Mars, we need to make sure the rocket can land safely.
Yeah.
So that's what the first missions are all about. Confirming that we can land without generating more craters on Mars. So we want crater count on Mars to be constant. Yeah.
No bouncing.
No new craters.
Yeah.
So as long as we increment the crater count on Mars, then we and we feel confident that future missions are going to be safe for people, then we'd send people. You only get to do this every 2 years, roughly. So because Earth and Mars synchronize the orbits synchronize every 26 months for a launch window. So you have really an integer number of kicks to the can that is like a pretty low integer in our lifetimes. So maybe it's like 15, something like that, maybe 20.
So I was just wondering. I was thinking, anyways, that I know that there's a 2-year window. How many would you shoot up in that brief window that you've got? Would you send 4 or 5?
Ultimately we'll send thousands.
No, I mean for the first.
First one, yeah.
First one.
Depends how many rockets we have ready. It's only 18 months from now, so the next Mars window. So in order to send something to Mars, we have to, still solve a lot of technical problems, and then we've got to refill propellant in orbit.
Yeah.
So it's going to be close as to whether we are able to send some test rockets to Mars at the end of next year. We might not make it, but we might make it. I'd say 50-50 right now. And we'd send 3 to 5, something like that.
And that's when I was interviewed a while ago and I said 5. I would think you're going to send 5 up. I mean,
it depends on how many we have.
Yeah.
So
right. So I've got one last question because she's going like this. Has anyone have you got something that you'd like to tell the audience that no one's asked the question on yet?
Well, I guess it's worth repeating, to people why are we doing this? Because sometimes people are puzzled as to why we're doing it. You know, and the reason we're doing it is to make life consciousness multiplanetary.
Yeah.
So as to preserve the future of civilization and consciousness and life as we know it, and there's always some chance of something going wrong on Earth. Overall, I'm fairly optimistic about Earth. So this is not a. But let's just say like there's a 1% chance, for argument's sake, of life as we know it and consciousness being annihilated on Earth. I think it's still, even if there's just a 1% chance of civilizational annihilation, you'd want to protect against that by having a second planet, back up the biosphere effectively, and ensure the continuity of life and consciousness. And this is the first time in the 4.5 billion year history of Earth that it's been possible to do so. So we should take advantage of this window while it is still open. We don't want to be complacent and assume that there will be this constant upward trajectory of civilization. Hopefully that happens, but it might not. And so this is about protecting the future of life itself.
As far as I'm concerned, that's admirable.
Thank you.
And I don't want to throw me out.
If you like life, you know.
I do like life. I think it's a good idea. And by the way, I like the idea of having children as well. So,
no kids, no humans, no humanity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, thank you again. Right. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Elon.
Right,
thank you. Good luck.